welcome to the North Bank podcast, where as ever I'm joined by Stef and Chris. Hello, guys.
Hello.
So this is the Palace Sandwich podcast.
Very witty.
I thought so. As that tight, go on, Chris.
I was going to say, what kind of bread would Palace be?
Oh, just plain
royal
white loaf.
bread. Royal bread. No, some kind of royal bread. Palace.
No.
Is Palace a bit of a hipster area? I don't really know.
I don't think it's kind of up and coming. So it's aspiring. It's sort of like Hovis with bits in it.
Okay, so what kind of filling are we?
Well, depends what day you get us on, really, isn't it? It's one of those fillings that, you know, on some days you really crave it and it's really good, and then on other days you're like, I'm not so bothered about that.
Yeah,
I don't know what that would be.
Sometimes satisfying, sometimes deeply disappointing.
Corned beef. Let's go with corned beef, maybe.
Listeners, you haven't made a mistake. This is actually the North Bank podcast, where we will talk about football primarily. This little kind of deviation into sandwiches, I'm not sure.
You started it.
I did not start it. What are you on about? Right, so we're looking back at Palace quarter-final from last night, 3-2 victory, and looking ahead to the league game on Saturday. Is it 5:30 kickoff, Steph? You're going, aren't you?
5:30 on TV. I'll be there.
Fantastic. Away end, Steph is back.
We.
Right, okay, so look, we had a bit of fun in the WhatsApp group yesterday before the game even kicked off, where I was accused of being a flat earther. And worse than that, I was accused of being Lee Gunner. And my crime was merely pointing out that I felt 8 changes to the outfield 10 was too much. That was my crime. And you two, well, I don't know, Chris, you kind of kept your powder dry. Steph was kind of, I don't know, putting up the case for the defence, if not quite launching into me. But
in the interest of honesty, I was really mainly on the wind up, because even I looked at that lineup and went, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, I mean, 8 changes. So look, the only 2 players. Oh, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Timber and Marino? They're the only 2 surviving outfield members.
And Ray.
And Timber wasn't even being played in his natural
he's
position.
playing at centre back and Barty at right back. And but can we just acknowledge that it was so lovely to see Kieran Tierney back in the starting 11 for Arsenal? That was great. And I thought he acquitted himself really, really well.
Played quite well. Should have got an assist.
But just on him, I the other news that David Ornstein broke immediately after the game was that we're not renewing we're not taking up the offer of the extra year. So he's free to talk to clubs from January, and he will be leaving in the summer, if not in January. But it was nice to see him back, and I'm really thrilled for him, because he's been really unlucky with the same injury again. Similar. Go on, Steph.
Well, I was just going to say, and everyone. Eyes were rolling across the country when he sort of went down late on, but it turns out it was just a bit of cramp.
Well, which is fair enough. It's fair enough. It's someone like Mason Mount at United as well. On a human level, you just feel this, like he's broken down again. He's got another Luke Shaw at United as well. Just the Van der Ven maybe at Spurs. This kind of this.
It's not just the injuries with Tierney, though, is it? It's just a matter of timing in terms of the player he is, the profile he is, and the way that Arteta wants to play. It just never looked like a good fit. You know, he asked him to play that inverted role, and it's clearly not his thing. So that's another reason why it hasn't quite worked for him.
Yeah, and good luck to him. I mean, I hope he stays injury-free for the rest of his career. And how old is he? 27?
Yeah, something like that.
So he's still quite young. He's still got 5 or 6 years left if the hamstrings, allow that. So look, I felt it was too much rotation. 8 changes. I wanted more of a balance. I wanted some rotation. But I know, Steph, yes, you may have been on the wind up. Nobody, you can't keep you happy. He's either not rotating or he's rotating too much. Well, no, there's balance, and the changes he made at half time kind of reflected the balance that I was after beforehand. We didn't get too far away from the predicted lineups, I guess, when we predicted it. The back line I was out on for obvious reasons, but I didn't see the first half, so I was still tutoring for the first half. So I saw a fantastic Arsenal performance. So I have a completely skewed, but as somebody who knows a lot more about football than I, and who made these comments during the first half. Palace bossing the game. We look like what we are, a second string team that's never played together before. And at half time, pretty bleak first half. So Chris, they are your words of wisdom. So talk me through the first half and kind of what wasn't working for us. And I know, Kivior was culpable. But...
Yeah. I think even if he hadn't made that ricket, you could tell that this was a team that hadn't played together before. I felt particularly sorry for Nwaneri because he's expected to drop in to Ødegaard's position again with players he's never really played with consistently before, and it kind of showed. As soon as Ødegaard came on for the second half, it just everything gelled. But yeah, that first half was pretty lumpy, and we never really got going. It just, Palace looked comfortable. Again,
they've probably observed other teams do similar, i.e. Fulham and Everton, and probably quite, justifiably thought, well, Arsenal haven't got enough to break us down because they failed to break down. Yeah. They're failing to break down a lot of teams who present this. They got the goal early on. I don't know what minute the goal was, but it was quite early. Was it in the first 10 minutes?
Yeah, within the first 10 minutes, yeah.
Steph, what was your kind of take on the first half?
Well,
or the team selection as well, Well,
yeah. I mean, I was sort of joking, about the rotation that we cry for it, but he'd gone too far with that, and even just some of the personnel. No one expected Tierney, as much as I love him, to be playing for the Arsenal again. So that was a real sort of surprise.
Was it an arrogance from Arteta? Was he dismissing? I've seen lots of accusations of just arrogant, dismissing. I mean, are we in a position to dismiss a trophy?
No, but he probably felt that the time he was going to switch on to it was going to be the semi-finals. And being at home, perhaps he, factored in enough of different sort of factors that would help us, I suppose, against sort of any opposition. The issue was, and especially in that first half, and I'm glad you mentioned what Chris had said, because I was going to make sure that I did as well, that we make, whatever it was, 8 changes, and it clearly just disrupted any fluency, from a team that hadn't had a huge amount of fluency beforehand anyway, and compare that to Palace, who were a fairly settled side, 1 or 2 changes here and there, just sort of natural either rotation or injuries or whatever. They played a young kid at fullback who made a couple of interesting runs and looked quite self-assured. And they just had a bit more of cohesion. That's the word. Mateta was always an outlet, and he's a player who's back on form, having been brilliant towards the end of last season, dropped off a bit at the start of this season, and is now picking it up again. And Palace, defensively, I can't remember exactly what the stats are, but they're not conceding a huge amount of goals. When they do lose, if they do lose, it's only by maybe one. They're not a team that are ever completely out of games, which was why it was a real killer to go one down, because then it was like, okay, now we've really got to try and break them down. It's that double down process of a team against Arsenal, because like you say, the blueprint had been written against Everton and Fulham, and we just looked, lacking cohesion. A few players that are trying certain things, but nothing was really coming off.
So we had a Sterling free kick.
Well, I was just going to say the one thing that was quite nice and enjoyable to see was Sterling's free kick, which I didn't necessarily know he was going to do. But yeah.
So 1-0 down, fair scoreline at half time, would you say?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at the same time, it was a mistake that then wasn't that they capitalised on. Someone online, again, I can't remember who said it, the mistake isn't necessarily the issue, because all defenders can make a mistake and misread things and misjudge things. What they felt was the difference between Kiwior being in that position and Gabriel is that in the recovery, going shoulder to shoulder with the player, Gabriel's less likely to win that duel. And that's where his strength is. That's where his kind of elite...
He's more likely.
Yeah, he's less likely to lose it, yeah.
Sorry, he's less likely to lose the duel against Mateta and keep him away from the ball. Sorry, yeah. And probably just shows, that's... But Kiwior's a second-choice centre-back, so...
I mean, with this whole team selection thing going back a bit, I don't think it's arrogant so much as... Those substitutions, I think most of them were planned anyway, is that he'd always intended to bring on his first team...
At half-time?
Not necessarily at half-time, but certainly with a decent, 25 minutes left of the game to get some miles into the legs ahead of Saturday. Like we've always said, players just need to be kind of kept ticking over. And I always felt that Ødegaard, Saka, probably Gabriel as well, just to get some miles into them. So regardless of the score, and I think he was just thinking, okay, we'll start with this team and we'll see how we go. Obviously, he felt the need to bring them on sooner. So I don't feel it was sort of arrogance as such. I just feel like he's managing the team as best he can.
So therefore, I quite liked the fact that he recognised, okay, this is not working, and I'm going to go to those big guns on the bench. I think... If it had bordered into arrogant, there wouldn't have even been some of those big guns on the bench, maybe, and it would have been the Youth Cup as it used to be a long time ago. I don't really know. The funny thing is, it's hard to take, if it's just about trying to protect people from injuries and their workload and things like that, I don't feel like that's then helped by playing Timber at centre-back, because he's a player who, has... See, it feels like he's been on the edge of an injury for quite a long time, having come back.
And it's more important that we keep him fit because of the dearth of
the lack of cover at right back. Exactly.
Defence is the hardest to rotate at the moment, as we know.
Yeah. Okay. Like I said, I didn't see any of the first half, so I started watching half time, and or for the start of the second half. At half time, then Ødegaard and Saliba came on for Partey and Nwaneri. How was Nwaneri in the first half? I mean. The more the season progresses, the more I hear people clamouring to see Nwaneri and Ødegaard play on the same team. Clearly, they're different types of players. But again, he was hooked at half-time. How was he in the first half, like in terms of an individual performance?
I just said earlier, he just looked isolated and there wasn't the same cohesion as a team for him to be able to slot into. It just didn't quite come off for him. And I've heard this sort of murmurings of, it's a couple of games now where he hasn't had an impact, and it's, he's only 17, he's plateauing and all this. Look, he is just 17, and he was put into a team that he's never played in before. So what do you expect? Yes,
game context. I mean, he's not been done any favours by Arteta when he's played him. Yesterday, again, like put him in a starting 11 where he's the only change, not where there's 8 outfield changes. It's like then you can measure his impact and his influence. Fine. So I started watching, and a little nod to the crowd. I thought the crowd were really, really raucous and up for it. It really came across for me on the telly that, whatever Arteta's attitude towards the game was, the crowd were like, we have to win this game. And they were really behind it. And there was that, I think I started watching the precise moment that Tierney was just about to put the ball across and Sterling had he really should have scored. Either one of the chances he had, he should have scored. I mean, you could say it was a good save and he was unlucky when he hit the crossbar, but I'd be more inclined to say you should have buried either one of those chances. Look, I'll just give the headlines and then you guys can going to go into the detail. But, we witnessed a hat-trick from a striker who you'd imagine has been banging the goals in all year with the way he took those. So 54 minutes, like a fantastic through ball from Ødegaard. Someone's retweeted on, I don't know, Twitter or somewhere, a slow-mo of the whole movement where Miles Lewis-Skelly gives the ball to Ødegaard, and then Ødegaard just cuts inside and feigns to pass, doesn't pass, and then just threads that ball through. And Jesus does a lovely first touch. Now, the defender was poor. He dived in. It would have been, had Jesus fallen over, it was a nailed-on penalty. But the finish from Jesus was just a thing of beauty. So that's on 54 minutes. 73 minutes, Saka provided the assist. Jesus looked up, which was interesting. The difference between Jesus' second and third goals last night and his two efforts against Everton at the weekend. Was it Everton at the weekend? Where he didn't look up. He kind of put his threads behind, got his threads through the ball, but he didn't look up. He just leathered it. Whereas last night, the two goals, he looked up first. And he not only struck it sweetly and with kind of venom, but precision as well. He hit it where he was aiming, having weighed up the situation. So that was 73 minutes he scored from a Saka assist, and on 81 minutes he scored from another Ødegaard assist. That goal was quite interesting because he had so much time, and I must admit, watching it, I didn't think he'd score. I didn't, the longer he had, he's more instinctive. Like that first finish, that was instinctive. And it was just the highest quality. But he absolutely leathered it. And it turned out to be the winner in the end. And Eddie then scored a ridiculous header
crazy.
to make it 3-2. And a bit of a twitchy last few minutes, although, only because of the scoreline, not because of anything that actually happened. So what was your Chris, what was your kind of assessment or feeling towards the second half?
I think you have to start with Ødegaard, his impact, the way that he came on and just made everything gel, and sort of indicate that decision to bring him on earlier. You're right, that little stutter that he does when he's passing. And so much can happen in that little moment when you feint to pass, and then it's like a split second, but so much has happened in terms of movement and seeing the right pass to make. Bergkamp used to do it a lot. So that first goal for me was the pick of the bunch, and second one, clearly offside. But
oh yes,
I take it.
I forgot, and I was like, "Oh, he's offside." There's no VAR. It was like,
yeah.
But there is VAR in the semi-final. Go
figure.
Yeah, work that one out for me. I don't know.
Yeah. And then the third goal, I kind of likened it to the Man United goal that he scored. Like, you're right in that sometimes the instinctive strike is more sort of successful. You got less time to think about it, but the way he sort of teased Dalot when he scored that goal, remember when he
sent him into the stands?
He's still going now. He's in Aberdeen, but he yesterday was a real lethal, and the fact that he hadn't scored for so long. Yeah. The audacity and the confidence of that first goal. Look, I hope it bodes well. Of course, we all do. But I the back of my mind is that, one swallow does not a summer make kind of feeling, and that we still probably need a different profile option up front. I'm being as diplomatic as possible.
No, but that's my fear, wasn't it? I said a couple of pods ago, I hope Jesus doesn't go on this great run, because then we won't sign any bloody striker or attacking player in January, and here we are.
And the murmurings now is, he has to start on Saturday, doesn't he? I'm hearing from
pause, because we'll pick the starting 11 in a minute for the Saturday game. So it'll be interesting to see what team we've each gone for as a consequence. Steph, what was your kind of sense of what transpired in that second half then?
Well, like I said, I quite like the fact that we were proactive in making those changes and going for it. And I mean, what's Ødegaard, 25 now? He's a good 7-8 years ahead of Nwaneri. So it's hardly any surprise that he's able to come on and affect the game straight away. Nwaneri is so early in his development that... Yeah,
where was Ødegaard at 17?
Well, exactly. So, the fact that we've got that Ødegaard, trump card to pull out is absolutely fantastic. And he was just brilliant. Jesus is a funny one, because if ever a player has needed a goal, it's him. But once he did... it was like he's had a smile back on his face. And football, such a confidence game sometimes. Chelsea are in that sort of place at the moment, it seems, in terms of their league form, and it's why we've been a little bit down, because there's been a few false dawns here and there, and it's been a bit stuttery, or we get a few combinations going, and then all of a sudden one player comes out of that because they're injured or suspended, and it's just hard to build those sort of relationships. So like you say, as good as it was for Jesus there, I didn't actually think he would miss those second or third chances, particularly the third, with so much time, because I just thought, well, no, there are some games when a player does something that ignites a little bit of confidence in them. But I'm with you, Chris. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to transition into a purple patch of form across a number of games. Of course it doesn't, because ultimately as well, we've got other players who have been performing at a high level in similar sorts of positions. And will Palace be as obliging in the league at their place? Who knows? But it was so good to see, and I think it added to those good vibes of the second half, that even the second Palace goal from Eddie, couldn't really dampen it. Bit nervy, but not really. Yeah, I thought the atmosphere was good, the vibes were good in the end, and grateful to be in a semi-final now. We go strong in those games, whoever we get, and hopefully get us back to Wembley, because we need it.
And 3 goals from open play.
Another 3 goals from open play. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Which, for the 2 assisters, Odegaard and Saka, is good. Is good news. So semi-finals up next. We've got Newcastle, Liverpool, and as we're speaking now, it's half-time at the Toilet Bowl, and Spurs are 1-0 up against United. First question, Chris, who do you want to win that game, Spurs or United?
Oh God, that's just dirty, having to think about that. I say United. I think we've got a better chance of beating them if we meet them. I think we mentioned this in the last pod, where I agree that I think Spurs are, even though both teams are going through their own kind of chaotic period, I think there's more disarray at United with the new manager coming in. They're not a balanced team. I just think Spurs, if they're not injured, are not a bad outfit, as much as it pains me to say it, but they're just... On
their day, they could be quite dangerous, yeah. I mean,
they've got so many injuries at the moment as well. So.
Yeah, United. I want Spurs out. I don't want Ange to get anywhere near a trophy in his second season, mate.
So United to win that, and who do you want in the semi-final?
Semi-final, again, United. They play with a back 3. Amorim is very dogmatic in playing with that formation. Palace did, and we were able to exploit some of that indecision. So if Trossard stayed wide, or if Tierney was wide and the players moved over, it seemed to create a little bit more space than there has been recently.
So both of you two boys want United in the semi-final for two games. I mean, it brings me out in a cold sweat.
Well, what brings me out in a cold sweat is either Newcastle or Liverpool in a final. Ugh.
Well, we've done Newcastle. Well, we've done both teams in finals before. We've been done by Liverpool in the final before, but
I prefer Newcastle out of the two of them.
I see this thing. So Rory Talks on TikTok did a little video today on prospective opponents in the semi-final, and like you two, he settled on United as his preference because, quite bizarrely, and I understand his reasoning, he said he feels that the United game would be the least emotional of the 3. Liverpool the best team, so that will be too high, and they'll go for it if it's like any team will in the semi-final. So 2 additional high octane games. Newcastle, his argument was they are so desperate to win a trophy that the emotion in that game will be off the charts, and a tough, physical, dogged double header against that team. Difficult.
We've had Needle with them.
Yes, so no, absolutely. It would be unpleasant. And then he argued that Spurs, obviously North London derby, emotions running high. I have heard people say that they're reminded of the 1987 League Cup semi-final, which was fantastic against Spurs.
Oh, was that the one when they announced the tickets?
Yes, at half-time in the Spurs game.
I was there.
What, at White Hart Lane that night?
Yeah.
So we were 2-0 down, like on aggregate at the time. I think Clive Allen had scored at Highbury to give them a 1-0 lead. And they then scored a second one. But then it was David Rocastle and Dean Allinson scored.
Yeah.
And away goals saw us through. And how's your queue buying tickets now? Okay, look, we did our job anyway, and we'll get who we're given. The draw's later on this evening, so by the time you guys are listening to this, you'll know who we've got. So Chris and Steph want United. I don't want anyone. I just want a bye into the final. That was great, and it was a nice little break from like the Champions League. The Plucky Cup, as we've relabelled it, has been from the league, but we're back to Premier League action on Saturday, so we'll take a little break here, and when we come back, we'll cast our thoughts towards Palace at the weekend. So join us then. Welcome back to part 2 of the Palace Sandwich podcast. Just to murder that metaphor. 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. Surely we're feeling a little more positive about this game away to Palace based on our second half performance yesterday, when we had one thing that was evidenced is with our better players, we are a better team. Interestingly, from Palace perspective, they took off Eze quite early last night. What's his face in midfield? The blondie?
Will Hughes. He
came off as well, and he's kind of crucial to their first 11, and they brought off someone else. So they brought off like kind of 3 of their more key players, whilst losing to us, obviously with a nod towards Saturday. So Chris, how are you feeling about this particular league game away at Palace? I mean, we have to win. Liverpool travelled to Spurs on Sunday, and Spurs' defence, as we pointed out before we started recording, is like, well, second string would be like Porro, Dragerson, Archie Gray and Jed Spence playing in the back line. Romero and Van der Ven are out till the new year, so there's nobody coming back in on Sunday to strengthen that defence. So we're going to have to win. How are you feeling? What's your thoughts about the game, and can you give us who you think will start?
I think, given the game that we've just played against what I expect will be pretty much Palace's starting lineup, I don't think there'll be too many changes from that team that started in the League Cup game, because that was pretty much their full strength side, which buoys me even more that we got the result with, obviously a few augmentations in the second half. I am feeling more confident, and I think we're going to revert to I don't think we're going to play Jesus. I think he'll be a useful sub, but I think we're going to start with Raya, Timber right back, Saliba, Gabriel, MLS. Sorry,
Stop
Miles
it.
Lewis Skelly. Miles Lewis Skelly. And then Ødegaard, I'm going to go Rice and Marino again, because I think he wants to give Marino more game time to really bed him in, and I think he likes that combative nature of his, the ball-winning nature. I do think Arteta wants that, and especially for away games. Saka, Havertz, Martinelli for me.
Okay.
To exploit the space we might get.
Steph, Saturday, you're going.
I am going, and I'm hoping to see a return to the big guns in the starting lineup. So I've gone with Raya in goal. Back four, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Miles Lewis Skelly. Until I hear anything otherwise about Calafiori, I'm just going to assume he's still injured. Midfield 3, Ødegaard, Rice, Marino. I'm assuming Rice sat out Palace to be rested for this league game and that it's not that serious. Front 3, Saka, Havertz. And I think the left side has been dysfunctional enough to give Jesus a pop on that left side. Why not?
I did think that I toyed with it, but then I got that kind of one swallow feeling.
Well, that's why I think I'm not sure. I just want to bring Havertz back in. His hold-up play, his aerial threat, his link-up play with other players is absolutely fine. And similarly, it was the moving around, it was the pulling players out of position, because Palace do play that back three, that could still work. Havertz picks up various different positions. Sometimes I'd prefer him to stay bloody central sometimes. Whereas, so if Jesus can drift inside to those positions, then, fine. Why not? It's not like Martinelli and Trossard have been pulling up trees. So.
Well, exactly. I was just going to say that. I was like, if Martinelli and Trossard have been alternating for that starting position on the left-hand side for the last number of weeks, neither have put in any kind of run of form to dictate to the manager that they should be playing. I've actually gone for exactly the same team as you, Steph. Rice, Marino, Odegaard, Saka, Havertz and Jesus on the left-hand side. Lewis Skelly on the left. Again, I've not heard anything about Calafiori, but I think Lewis Skelly would have been a shoo-in to start last night's game, but he started the previous two games, Champions League and the league against Everton. So I think it's amazing how quickly your fortunes can change, or your role and responsibility within the squad or team can change. He was taken out of the starting lineup in the League Cup game because he'll start in the league game at the weekend. So, well done, young man. That's impressive. You've earned it. And there's not an Arsenal fan who is concerned about his position in the starting 11. So, more power to you. So I've gone for the same starting 11. I forgot. I should have prefaced this look ahead to Palace with a quiz.
Oh dear.
Okay.
So I have two quizzes. Okay. I didn't want to let you down and disappoint. I do have, name the top. I think I've got 5 players who've represented both Arsenal and Palace in the Premier League era. And by 5 top players, I mean the 5 players who've accumulated most appearances between the two clubs. It's actually really interesting. I would never, ever have got... Do you know what? I might have got... No, probably none of the 5. I'm like, really? I didn't remember that. Really? No way. So there's the top 5 I'm looking for. The other quiz, because our most high-profile signing from Palace is obviously, well, for my money, Ian Wright. And on his league debut what I wrote down, 28th of September 1991, away at Southampton was his league debut. We won that game 4-0. Ian Wright scored a hat-trick and David Rocastle got the other goal. My quiz question is, name the starting 11 for Arsenal that day. No, I think that's an easier question than the 5 players who've represented both clubs the most in the Premier League era. So they're the two quiz questions, and I'm sorry I should have delivered them a little bit earlier so the listeners could have a little bit more time to
how about us having a bit more time?
You two, it's fine. I can see Steph's on his phone already googling it, so
I'm keeping an eye on the bloody Spurs score.
I'm teasing. Right, back to the matter in hand, which is Palace on Saturday. Chris,
yes,
in your more buoyant mood after last night's performance, what's your score prediction?
I predicted 2-1 for the cup game, and I am going to go even more bullish, and I'm going to say 2-0 to the Arsenal.
Okay.
That's how confident I am.
That is confident. I mean, I'll take that now. Steph.
I predicted a draw for the cup game, and it was a bit wavy.
Oh yes, losing on penalties.
It was a bit nervy when we went 1 down, and then they scored 1 to make just a tiny little bit twitchy late on. I think they might be even more obstinate in the league to try and frustrate us more than anything. So I'm going 1-1.
Do you think that they'll be aggrieved because of the VAR decision that clearly went against them? Oh, sorry, the non-VAR, the offside goal.
Yes, to a point, although generally the feeling online, although obviously we're in a very sort of Arsenal-centred sort of world online, the feeling was that just games are just better without VAR. They just flow better. They don't stop for ridiculous amounts of time, regardless of whether they get the right decision or not.
I've got a question. Do you think the linesman didn't put his flag up because he's conditioned not to put his flag up because he knows that VAR will check, and by the time he realised that this was not a VAR game, it was too late because he couldn't remember exactly what it... Spurs have just gone 3-0 up.
I'd like to think not that the linesman did that, because there was no... Were they Premier League officials? Because sometimes they come from the Football League as well. So.
I don't know. I'm assuming they were, but I don't know.
That's by the by. Also, yes, Palace might be aggrieved the fact that we scored a goal that was clearly offside on repeat viewing, but how much does that factor into the way you then start the game and approach the game? Look, they're gonna do what they normally do, where they can transition on teams quite quickly. They've got a couple of tricky players in Eze. They've got Mateta, who's a striker, sort of on form and is quite up for the one-to-one battle with central defenders. They'll just approach it the way they want to approach it.
And they're on a pretty good run.
Yeah,
they beat Brighton at Brighton last time out. They're sitting 4 points above the relegation zone.
They were so much better than Brighton.
And it's like something you said, Chris, last week, and my response to it was you were kind of bemoaning the fact, another team we're meeting on form, and I'm like, well, good, because they'll come at us a little bit, and not just sit. I mean, they might well be dogged, and they're quite a physical outfit as well. But again, my prediction is 2-1, a 2-1 win, just because I really struggled to not, or to kind of back a clean sheet. I guess I just think that, and away from home against Palace, I just think that, they scored 2 goals against us last night. I'm glad Eddie's got the narrative out of the way in a game that with a goal that didn't have any bearing or no kind of long-term consequences or pain and suffering for us. Steph, yeah.
So on that's Eddie Nketiah's first goal for Palace, is it not? No,
I think it's his second, but he hasn't scored in the league yet.
Ah, right. Okay, so maybe it's a Premier League thing then. Well, there are 4 players in the Premier League era that have left Arsenal and then scored their first goal for that club against Arsenal. Do you know who they might be?
God, is Adebayor one of them?
Nope.
Ian Wright's one?
Nope.
Are they strikers?
1, 2 are strikers. One's a winger, I suppose, and then the other one is a centre back. Mavropanos for West Ham. Absolutely right. Last year, in that 2-0 win where we had like 7,000 shots on goal. Another one is a famous one for them, lot down the road.
Bentley.
Yeah, Bentley.
Oh yeah,
Tottenham,
of course. I was at that game.
Yeah, horrible. And the other 2 were strikers. So Anelka for Bolton in 2006, and the other one recently departed Kevin Campbell for Forest.
God, I feel left out now because I haven't got a quiz for you. Can I do one that's sandwich based?
Probably you can.
You can use it as filling for the.
Okay. Are we ready for my quizzes then?
Go on then.
Okay. Hit me with some names.
I'll go first. Matthew Flamini.
Yeah, good. He's 216 times for... I had no idea he played for Palace, by the way. 216 times for us, 13 times for Palace.
I think Adebayor might be one of them.
Yeah, I didn't know he played for Palace either. I'm good at this. 125 times for us, 15 for Palace.
Well, beyond that, Ian Wright is out.
Well, he didn't. I don't know if he played for Palace in the Premier League.
No, he's out. Yeah, he's out.
So he doesn't count. So after that,
one of these I did know played for Palace. Well, in fact, 2 of these I did know played for Palace, but I still wouldn't have come up with their names.
Right. Holding?
No.
Has he played for them yet?
Well, he's there. I don't know if he's played for them, actually.
I don't know if he has, actually.
I think, the requirement was that they've played at least 10 games for either club. That was my kind of unofficial...
How about Eddie on the strength that he's played a lot for us?
No. He hasn't... or maybe he has now played 10 times for Palace. He probably has, in the Premier League. I don't know. But I haven't put him down. Clues. So you're looking for 3 players. One of them is a member of the Invincibles. He's played 14 times for Palace, 201 times for us.
Campbell didn't have a very short spell there, did he?
No, he didn't. He's an interesting character that in that Arsenal fans would probably have mixed, I don't know, maybe I'm being generous, mixed feelings towards him because of how he left us.
Ashley
Cole.
Indeed. 14 times for Palace. I had no idea he played for them.
No,
there you go.
On loan?
No idea. Okay, so we have a centre-forward and a centre-back. Ironically, the centre-back is most famous for a goal he scored for us in a cup final.
Linnigan.
Andy Linnigan. 95 times for us, 111 times for Palace.
One of my first Arsenal memories.
Yeah, and I just love the kind of poetic justice that Mark Bright broke his nose earlier on in the game, and it was Mark Bright who lost the duel for the header from the corner in the last minute of extra time in the replay, wasn't it? So it was going to penalties. So fair play, Andy Linnigan. And the centre forward is probably more famous for his hair, maybe. And the
Chamakh.
Chamakh, yes. Marwan Chamakh.
Oh, Gel Boy.
Yeah, 51 times for us, 64 times for Palace. And what I should have looked up is how many goals he got in that time. I do remember he scored in that bizarre game for us against Reading where we won like 7-5 at the Medeski Stadium in the Cup, and where Arsenal famously were celebrating going through at the end of 90 minutes, and Bentner had thrown his shirt into the crowd, and then the Arsenal official saying it's going to extra time, get back, we haven't won yet, and it's like, oh, can I have my shirt back from the crowd? He's trying to get his jersey back from the Arsenal end. Right, okay, so that's that. Now, so the other one then, so the starting 11 in Ian Wright's debut league match for us at Southampton, 28th of September 1991. You've got 2 players because I've given you him as the hat-trick scorer and David Rocastle.
Can we assume that the back 5 was the sort of Seaman?
So you can assume, except there's one difference, but you might get it in the light of recent conversation.
So Seaman, Dixon, Linnigan, Adams, Winterburn.
That's correct.
And I haven't looked it up. And then I fall to pieces with the midfield because I can't remember. Obviously, beyond Rocastle, I've got Limpar, but I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, Limpar played. So he's the only non-English player to
Thomas.
Michael Thomas and Rocky were in the middle.
Steph.
You say Merson?
Yeah, Merson was on the left. And front 2, alongside Ian Wright was...
Kevin Campbell.
Yeah, Alan Smith. The only substitute on the day was Kevin Campbell for Paul Merson.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, I mean, it's, like I said, it was an easier quiz question than the players who've played for both us and Palace, because it was...
You being younger, Steph, you probably don't remember it as vividly as me.
How old were you in 1991, Steph?
6 going on 7.
Jesus
Sorry.
Christ.
I hate you.
Yes. He's so young.
The score update. Man United have got a goal back. It's 3-1 now to Spurs.
Here we go.
Comeback is on.
Spurs, he's back.
Only 65 minutes. Shall we just cut this podcast short and go and watch it?
Yeah, let's go watch Spurs. Fuck it up.
Here we are, lovely. Mate. Anything else to say? Arsenal women beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League 3-2 with the late goal. I think the draw for the quarterfinals in February, and the quarterfinal itself isn't till March, so they can sit back and relax and savour the moment of qualification. And they finished top of the group against Bayern Munich, which is good. No idea who's going through in the other groups, but well done there. Anything else that you guys have picked up?
Just very quickly, a little sort of trivial point is that in the presser recently with Arteta when they said you've only won one trophy, he was very keen to point out that we'd won.
That's embarrassing.
Well, it's embarrassing. Initially as a fan, you kind of go, "Oh, cringe!" It's just the charity community run below's shield, and then I thought about it, and I thought, well, maybe this is good in that he's instilling a sense of win everything, and
then makes 8 changes to his outfield 10.
Well, like we said, I don't think he was trying to throw the game. He was trying to balance it in some way. He's not going to do that in the semis.
I must admit, my response to him saying that was, you've just guaranteed that Spurs and United and Liverpool and Chelsea fans will take the royal piss out of Arsenal fans for their 2 trophies winning their charity shield. Spurs no, because they've got nowhere near it. But anyway.
Well, I think for me, that's what sums it up. Look, I'm not going to pretend it's a trophy that we get too excited about, but I do remember being there at Wembley when we beat Man City.
Yeah, it's important.
It was about who we were beating. It was like, I remember being at the Community Shield when we beat Chelsea, and all of a sudden Mourinho turned around and said, it wasn't really a trophy, but he was shaking everyone's hand coming down and making a real performative thing about it. So I think who you play in that game sort of matters, but it also does typify where we're at, because we didn't get into those, or one of them at least, for winning the cup. We got there because we were second in the league and Man City won the cup, and so we were the next best team in the country, and that's where we are. Of course trophies are going to make or break certain things going forward, but I just think about where we were and where we are, and the fact that we're in the conversation and we're so annoyed at these fine margins. When you step back, we're in a good position, and
let me ask you a question.
Form going.
If we were the team 6 points clear in the Premier League at the moment, would any Arsenal fan have been bothered about Arteta's team selection last night?
No, not really, because we're looking at the league and thinking the longer it goes on, the harder and harder it is going to be to win the league, and therefore it shines a light on the other competitions that you're still vying for, doesn't it? So the fact that we've got a League Cup semi-final to look forward to, does that mean that the FA Cup third round, when it comes around, takes a little less priority because it's a longer journey to the final?
Unfortunately, it's against United.
But it's against United, and I think you've got to go at least semi-strong for that, because they're probably going to take it relatively seriously as well, especially if they don't make the comeback against Spurs in the League Cup, where their league position is pretty telling at the moment, so they're going to take it deadly serious, I think.
I mean, you made the point about United beating City, that United fans were getting cock a hoop. We're back. We beat City, but you were crap. City were crapper.
You weren't very good. Yeah,
it's like, and they're currently 3-1 down at a very Spursy Spurs, I guess. But anyway, right, shall we leave it there?
Yeah.
Let's go and watch the last 20 minutes of Spurs United. Just safe in the knowledge that we don't really care what happens.
Yeah, it's pretty funny either way.
So yeah, bit of embarrassment either way. Be nice.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. Or a lose for one of them. Right, okay, brilliant, lovely chat. Thanks for listening. We might have a Reacto pod on Saturday evening. Steph's adamant he wants to record a piece to camera on his way away, walking away from Selhurst Park. So we know who are we to deny him that honour. But if not, we'll catch up at some point over the weekend and look back at the conclusion, the satisfactory consumption of that Palace sandwich. Catch you on the other side. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at NorthBankPod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.
Okay, what the fuck am I saying? Let's see.
Palace sandwich.
Oh, yeah. I shouldn't have said it. I should have waited and just delivered it. And
do it, and we'll pretend you've just made it up.
Oh, so clever. Oh, Holly.
Hang on, I did make it up.
Of these things?
I did make it up. It's like, just because I'm repeating it doesn't mean I haven't made it up. I've made it up. I'm repeating it from myself.
You're just naturally funny.